The dog tag felt cold against Harper Mitchell's chest as she stared at Jefferson High's pristine facade, its perfectly manicured lawn and gleaming windows hiding the rot she could already sense festering beneath. 5 years, 14 schools, and one promise to a dead father had led her here. She adjusted the silver chain around her neck, feeling the familiar weight of her father's Navy SEAL identification pressing against her heart. The inscription was worn smooth from years of her thumb tracing over it. Chief Petty Officer David Mitchell, honor, courage, commitment. Below that, scratched in her own desperate handwriting during those first dark months after the funeral, always fight back. Promise to Dad. Jefferson High looked exactly like every other school she'd attended since that awful phone call. The same clusters of students, arranged in their predictable hierarchies. The same false smile from administrators who saw her as just another file to process. Another temporary problem to manage until her FBI mother inevitably got transferred again. But Harper had learned something in those 14 schools that these perfectly polished hallways couldn't teach. She'd learned to read people like crime scenes, to spot the predators and the prey, to recognize the delicate ecosystem of power that kept certain secrets buried and certain people silent. And right now, walking past the memorial wall dedicated to academic excellence and character building, Harper's instincts were screaming that something was very, very wrong. The first red flag came during second period advanced placement statistics, when Harper glanced at the grade distribution chart taped to Mrs. Henderson's desk. In her peripheral vision, she caught sight of a pattern that made her stomach drop. 3 students who'd been failing mid-semester had suddenly achieved perfect SAT scores. Not good scores, perfect scores. Harper had taken enough practice tests to know that kind of statistical jump was like lightning striking the same spot 3 times. Possible, but so improbable that any rational person would start asking questions. She started asking questions. Mrs. Henderson? Harper raised her hand, her voice carefully casual. I'm curious about the SAT improvement strategies you recommend here. I see some really impressive score jumps on that chart. Mrs. Henderson's smile faltered for just a fraction of a second. Oh, that's just a testament to our students' hard work and the excellent test prep programs we offer. Which programs specifically? Harper pressed, noting how the woman's hands had started fidgeting with her pen. I'd love to sign up. Well, you'd need to speak with the guidance office about eligibility requirements. And let me know in the comments. Where in the world are you watching from? We love seeing how far these stories travel. Whether you're here for the action, the heart, or both, thank you for being part of this mission. The word eligibility hung in the air like a loaded weapon. Harper had heard that tone before, in police interviews with suspects who were carefully choosing their words. In that moment, she knew she'd stumbled onto something much bigger than grade inflation. After class, Harper made her way to the guidance office, her father's tactical training kicking in automatically. Always gather intelligence before engaging the enemy. Always know the terrain before the battle begins. The guidance counselor, Mr. Peterson, was a thin man with nervous eyes who kept checking his computer screen while he spoke to her. Test prep program. Well, we have several options, but they're quite competitive to get into. What kind of competitive? Well, there's an application process, recommendations needed, and, of course, there are fees involved. Harper's mother had taught her to recognize bureaucratic doublespeak. Fees, recommendations, applications for test prep that should be available to any student who needed it. This wasn't about merit or need. This was about access. How much are the fees? Mr. Peterson's discomfort was almost palpable now. It varies depending on the program level. Perhaps you should discuss this with your parents first. As Harper left the guidance office, she noticed a tall, broad-shouldered boy leaning against the wall outside, apparently waiting for her. His letterman jacket bore the name Brennan and the number 9. His smile was the kind that never reached the eyes, the kind Harper had learned to recognize as danger wrapped in charm. "You must be the new girl," he said, pushing himself off the wall with lazy confidence. "Tyler Brennan. My dad runs this place." Principal Brennan's son, of course. "Harper Mitchell," she replied, keeping her expression neutral while cataloging everything about him. 6'3", probably 200 pounds. The kind of build that came from privilege and protein shakes, rather than real work. His handshake lasted a beat too long, and his grip was just slightly harder than necessary. "Mitchell," Tyler repeated, his head tilting like a predator catching an interesting scent. "That name sounds familiar. Your mom wouldn't happen to work in law enforcement, would she?" Harper's blood chilled. She'd learned to be careful about revealing her mother's profession, but somehow Tyler already knew. "She works for the government," Harper said carefully. Tyler's smile widened. "FBI Special Agent Margaret Mitchell, Cyber Crimes Division. Yeah, we know who you are. Harper, small town like this, word travels fast about new arrivals, especially when they come with such interesting backgrounds." The casual way he dropped her mother's exact job title and division was meant to be intimidating, and Harper had to admit it was effective. But fear had stopped being her primary emotion years ago. Now it just made her angry. "Good to know the gossip network is so efficient here," Harper replied, matching his fake smile with one of her own. "Just friendly community awareness," Tyler said. "We like to make sure everyone understands how things work around here. Jefferson High has a certain culture, traditions, ways of doing things that have worked well for a very long time." "I'm sure they have." Tyler stepped slightly closer, and Harper caught the scent of expensive cologne mixed with something she recognized from her mother's case files. The smell of someone who believed themselves untouchable. "The thing is, Harper, sometimes new students come in thinking they need to make waves. You know, trying to prove themselves or change things that don't need changing. But those students usually find that Jefferson High isn't really set up for that kind of disruption." The threat was subtle but clear. Stay quiet. Don't ask questions. Don't rock the boat. Harper looked directly into Tyler's eyes, and for just a moment, let him see exactly who he was dealing with. Not a scared teenage girl intimidated by his size and connections, but the daughter of a Navy SEAL who died protecting innocent people, raised by an FBI agent who specialized in bringing down criminals who thought they were too powerful to touch. "I appreciate the orientation," Harper said calmly. "I'm sure I'll fit right in." Tyler's smile faltered slightly, and Harper could see him recalibrating, trying to figure out why his usual intimidation tactics weren't having the desired effect. "I hope so," he said, but there was less certainty in his voice now. "For everyone's sake." As Tyler walked away, Harper felt the familiar weight of her father's dog tag against her chest. She thought about the inscription, about the promise she'd made, and about the 3 students whose impossible SAT scores had triggered her instincts. Always fight back. But first, always gather intelligence. That evening, Harper sat in her bedroom with her laptop, surrounded by printouts and notebooks, doing what her mother had trained her to do since childhood, following the money, connecting the dots, building a case. The SAT scores were just the beginning. Once Harper started digging into Jefferson High's academic records, patterns emerged like constellations in a previously dark sky. Not just impossible individual improvements, but systematic anomalies that suggested something far more sophisticated than simple cheating. Students from wealthy families consistently showed dramatic score improvements right before college application deadlines. Students from working-class families remained static or actually declined. The improvements weren't random spikes. They followed specific timelines that coincided with large financial transactions in the school's booster fund accounts. Harper had spent enough time in FBI offices to recognize the hallmarks of organized crime. This wasn't kids passing answers during tests. This was a systematic operation with multiple moving parts, administrative access, and significant financial backing. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "How was your first day at the new school?" Harper stared at the question for a long moment. How could she explain that she'd walked into what appeared to be a criminal enterprise disguised as academic excellence? That the principal's son had essentially threatened her family? That every instinct inherited from both parents was telling her she'd found something that could destroy dozens of lives if exposed, and possibly destroy hers if she pursued it? Interesting. She typed back, still getting oriented. "Remember what your father always said," came the immediate reply. "Honor isn't about being comfortable. It's about doing what's right when it costs you something." Harper touched the dog tag through her shirt. Her father had died doing what was right when it cost him everything. He'd thrown himself on a suicide bomber to protect 43 Afghan school children, saving their lives and ending his own. She looked back at her laptop screen, at the evidence mounting like storm clouds on the horizon. Tomorrow, she would start asking more questions. Tomorrow, she would start building a case that could bring down Tyler Brennan, his father, and everyone else involved in turning education into a commodity to be bought and sold. But tonight, she would remember that 13-year-old girl who'd promised her father's grave that she would always fight back. The next morning, Harper walked into Jefferson High with a new purpose. She'd spent the previous evening researching not just the SAT anomalies, but the entire administrative structure of the school. Principal Morrison Brennan, Tyler's father, had been in his position for 8 years. His brother, Jake Morrison, was the head of IT services. The guidance counselor, who'd been so nervous about test prep programs, was married to the district's curriculum coordinator. This wasn't just nepotism, this was a family business. Harper's first stop was the library, where she'd arranged to meet Lily Chen, one of the 3 students whose SAT scores had originally caught her attention. Lily had been valedictorian material until halfway through junior year, when her grades had mysteriously started slipping while her standardized test scores began climbing impossibly high. "I don't understand why you want to talk to me," Lily said nervously, glancing around the empty library like she expected surveillance cameras to start following her movements. "Because something doesn't add up about your academic record," Harper said gently, "and I think you know what I'm talking about." Lily's composure cracked instantly. I can't talk about this. You don't understand what they'll do." "What who will do?" "Tyler, his friends, the whole system here. I tried to be honest once, tried to report what was happening, and they destroyed me, systematically, socially, academically. They have ways of making your life hell that you can't even imagine." Harper leaned forward, recognizing the hollow look in Lily's eyes. She'd seen it in the mirror during those first months after her father died, when grief and trauma had made every day feel like survival. "Lily, I need you to know something about me. My father was a Navy SEAL. He died protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. My mother is an FBI agent who specializes in taking down criminals who think they're untouchable. I've been trained my entire life to recognize predators and to fight back against systems that prey on the vulnerable." Lily's eyes widened. "FBI? I'm not here to hurt you or get you in trouble. I'm here because I can see the same patterns my mother taught me to recognize. This isn't just about cheating. This is about something much bigger. And I think you're one of their victims, not their accomplice." For a long moment, Lily just stared at her. Then she pulled out her phone, scrolled through her photos, and showed Harper a screenshot. "This is what my real SAT score was supposed to be," she whispered. 1400. Good enough for state schools, but not for the Ivy League schools my parents expected. Harper looked at the official score report, showing 1600. "Perfect. Tyler's people approached me after I took the test the first time, said there had been a scoring error, and that they could fix it for a fee. My parents paid $20,000, thinking they were paying for legitimate test prep and advocacy. What they were really paying for was someone with administrative access to change my scores in the system." "Do you have proof of the payment?" Lily nodded, her hands shaking as she scrolled through more photos. "Bank transfers, receipts, even some recordings I made when I started getting suspicious." Harper's heart began pounding. This was it. This was the evidence that could blow the whole operation apart. But she also knew that the moment she acted on this information, she would be putting both herself and Lily in serious danger. "Lily, I need you to understand something. If we move forward with this, they're going to fight back hard. They're going to try to discredit us, intimidate us, maybe even hurt us. Are you prepared for that?" Lily's expression hardened, and Harper saw something fierce emerge in her eyes. "They already hurt me. They turned me into a liar and a fraud. They destroyed my relationship with my parents, who think I've been deliberately underperforming to manipulate them. They took away my integrity, my self-respect, and my future. What more can they do to me?" "A lot more," Harper said honestly. "But if we do this right, if we build an airtight case and get the proper authorities involved, we can stop them from doing it to anyone else." As they were speaking, Harper noticed Tyler Brennan enter the library with two of his friends. He made eye contact with her across the room, and his expression shifted from casual curiosity to something much more dangerous. He walked over to their table with the confident stride of someone accustomed to owning every space he entered. "Harper," he said, his voice carrying just loud enough for nearby students to hear. "I see you're making friends already. That's great." His eyes shifted to Lily, and Harper watched the smaller girl shrink back in her chair. "Lily, you're looking a little stressed. Everything okay?" "She's fine," Harper said before Lily could respond. "We were just talking about study groups." Tyler's smile was all teeth and no warmth. "Study groups. Right. You know. Harper, I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday, about how new students sometimes get confused about how things work around here." He pulled out a chair and sat down uninvited, creating an intimate circle that felt more like an interrogation than a casual conversation. "The thing is, Jefferson High has a really great community. Students look out for each other. Teachers support their students. Administration makes sure everyone has opportunities to succeed. But that only works when everyone respects the system that's been built here." Harper could feel Lily trembling beside her, and she understood that this moment was a test. Tyler was making it clear that he knew exactly what they'd been discussing. and he was giving Harper one last chance to back down before things escalated to a level she might not be prepared for. She thought about her father's dog tag, about the promise she'd made, about the 43 Afghan school children who were alive because one man had decided that protecting the innocent was worth any personal cost. "Systems should serve people," Harper said calmly. "Not the other way around." Tyler's mask slipped completely, and for just a moment, Harper saw the entitled rage of someone who'd never been told no in his life. "You have no idea what you're messing with," he said quietly. "No idea at all." He stood up abruptly, and Harper noticed that his two friends had positioned themselves to block the library exits. The message was clear: "You're trapped, and we want you to know it." "Lily," Tyler said, his voice now carrying clear menace, "walk away from this table, now." Harper watched Lily's face crumble as 17 years of conditioning to obey authority and avoid conflict warred with her desperate desire for justice. This was the moment that would define everything that came after. "Stay," Harper said quietly, reaching across the table to take Lily's hand. "You don't have to be afraid anymore." Tyler's face darkened. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." As he walked away, Harper felt her phone buzz with a text message from an unknown number. Some people never learn when to keep their mouths shut. Shame what happens to girls who don't know their place. Harper looked at Lily, who had seen the message and was now crying silently. "What happens now?" Lily whispered. Harper touched her father's dog tag one more time, feeling the worn metal and the promise etched beneath it. "Now we fight back." But even as she said the words, Harper could feel the walls closing in around them. Tyler Brennan had made it clear that this was war. And in war. The first casualty was always innocence. She had no idea that within 24 hours, she would be standing in the middle of the school cafeteria, surrounded by 200 students with their phones out, watching Tyler's friend hold a box cutter to the fabric of her skirt, while Tyler smiled the smile of someone who believed he held all the power. She had no idea that the promise she'd made to her father's grave was about to be tested in ways that would determine not just her own future, but the futures of dozens of other students who had been too afraid to speak up. All she knew was that somewhere in this pristine building, with its gleaming hallways and inspirational posters, a criminal enterprise was operating with impunity, and she was possibly the only person in position to stop it. The dog tag pressed against her heart, cold and constant as a heartbeat, reminding her that honor wasn't about being comfortable. It was about doing what was right when it cost you everything. The war, Tyler had declared, wasn't subtle. Over the next 3 days, Harper experienced what systematic intimidation looked like when orchestrated by someone who had never faced real consequences for his actions. It started small. Her locker combination mysteriously stopped working. Her car tires were slashed in the school parking lot. Anonymous accounts began posting her mother's FBI badge photo on social media with captions like "Narcs breed narcs" and "Daddy issues much." But Harper Mitchell was not most teenage girls. She'd been raised by a woman who understood that predators always escalated, and she'd been trained by a father who believed preparation was the difference between victim and survivor. While Tyler was playing high school power games, Harper was building a federal case. The smartwatch her mother had given her for her 17th birthday wasn't just a fitness tracker. It was military-grade surveillance equipment disguised as consumer electronics, capable of recording conversations, tracking locations, and uploading encrypted files to FBI servers in real time. Every threat Tyler made, every intimidation tactic his crew employed, every conversation that revealed the scope of their operation. All of it was being documented with the kind of precision that would make prosecuting attorneys smile in their sleep. "The network is bigger than I initially thought," Harper told her mother during one of their evening check-ins, her laptop screen filled with organizational charts that would have impressed any FBI field office. "Tyler's just the visible face. His uncle Jake Morrison controls all the IT infrastructure. Principal Brennan provides administrative cover. But the real money is coming from something called the Jefferson Excellence Foundation." Margaret Mitchell's expression sharpened on the video call. "That sounds like a money laundering operation." "It gets worse. Mom, the foundation receives donations from parents who think they're supporting academic programs, but the money gets funneled through multiple accounts before ending up in the personal accounts of the people running the scheme. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars." "Harper, honey, I need you to listen to me very carefully. What you're describing isn't just academic fraud. This is organized crime with RICO implications. These people aren't going to just try to embarrass you when they realize how much you know. They're going to try to destroy you." Harper touched her father's dog tag through her shirt. "Let them try." But even as she said the words, Harper could feel the walls closing in around her. Tyler's campaign of intimidation was escalating beyond simple harassment. Her guidance counselor had suddenly found irregularities in her academic records that threatened her enrollment. Anonymous tips to the school administration suggested she was using drugs. Her mother's FBI office received formal complaints about Agent Mitchell's unprofessional conduct in supposedly sharing classified information with her minor daughter. The attacks were coordinated, sophisticated, and designed to isolate Harper completely before moving in for the kill. It was Lily who warned her about the final play. "They're planning something for Friday," Lily whispered during lunch, her eyes darting around the cafeteria like a trapped animal. "I overheard Tyler talking to Marcus and Jake. They're going to do something public, something that will humiliate you so completely that no one will ever believe anything you say about them again." Harper's blood chilled, but her voice remained steady. "What kind of something? I don't know exactly. But Tyler was laughing about how your mom won't be able to help you when everyone sees what you really are. He said something about making sure everyone understands that some people don't belong at Jefferson High." That evening, Harper sat in her bedroom staring at the evidence she'd compiled. Financial records, recorded conversations, witness statements from other victims who had finally found the courage to come forward. She had enough to bring down the entire operation, enough to send Tyler and his collaborators to prison, enough to expose the corruption that had turned education into a commodity for the highest bidder. But she also knew that once she pulled that trigger, there would be no going back, and Tyler's final gambit, whatever it was, would happen before she could act. Harper opened her dresser drawer and pulled out a pair of black compression shorts, the kind her father had worn during special operations missions, military grade, designed for combat situations where mobility and protection were paramount. If Tyler wanted to play games, she would be ready. Friday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that made everything feel possible. Harper dressed carefully, her usual jeans and sweater. But underneath, the compression shorts that might save her dignity if Tyler's plan involved what she suspected it would. The smartwatch on her wrist was fully charged and set to broadcast directly to her mother's secure FBI server. Whatever happened next would be documented with the kind of clarity that left no room for doubt or misinterpretation. Harper walked into Jefferson High, knowing it might be the last time she ever walked those halls as a student. But she also walked in knowing that, by the end of the day. The systematic abuse of power that had destroyed so many students' lives would finally be exposed. She just had to survive whatever Tyler had planned. The cafeteria during fourth period lunch was always crowded. But today felt different. Harper noticed it immediately. The way conversations seemed to hush as she passed. The way phones appeared in hands like weapons being drawn. The way Tyler's crew had positioned themselves at strategic points throughout the room. This was theater, and Harper was about to become the unwilling star of Tyler's final performance. She bought her lunch and found an empty table near the windows, hyper-aware of every movement around her. Her smartwatch was recording everything, uploading to servers her mother would be monitoring in real time. If things went wrong, help would come. The question was whether it would come fast enough. Tyler made his entrance like a king addressing his subjects. He walked through the cafeteria with Marcus Chen on his left and Jake Morrison on his right, his movements deliberate and confident. Conversations stopped entirely now. Everyone knew something was about to happen. "Harper Mitchell," Tyler called out, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent room. "The girl who thinks she's better than all of us." Harper set down her sandwich and looked up calmly. Around them, phones appeared like flowers blooming after rain. Everyone wanted to record whatever came next. "Tyler?" she said, her voice steady and clear. "Looking for attention again." "Oh, I'm not the one looking for attention," Tyler replied, his smile cold and predatory. "That would be you, the girl who's been spreading lies about Jefferson High, about our students, about our administration. The girl who thinks her mommy's badge gives her the right to destroy other people's lives." Harper stood up slowly, every instinct inherited from both parents screaming that she was walking into an ambush. But sometimes the only way out was through. "I haven't spread any lies, Tyler. Everything I've said can be backed up with evidence." "Evidence?" Tyler laughed, and it was the sound of someone who had never doubted their own power. "You mean the made-up stories you've been telling to try to make yourself feel important? The desperate attempts to fit in by tearing down students who actually belong here." The crowd was growing now. Students from other lunch periods were filtering in, drawn by the electricity in the air. Harper estimated nearly 200 people surrounding them, all with their phones out, all waiting to see what would happen next. "Here's what I think, Harper," Tyler continued, beginning to circle her like a predator toying with wounded prey. "I think you're just another military brat who can't handle being the new girl. I think you're so desperate for attention that you'll make up elaborate conspiracies just to feel special." "And I think you're scared," Harper replied, her voice cutting through his performance like a blade. "I think you know exactly what I've discovered about your little operation, and you're terrified that your daddy can't protect you from the consequences this time." Taylor's mask slipped completely. The charming facade disappeared, replaced by pure rage and something else, genuine fear. Harper had hit the target dead center. "You have no idea what you're talking about," he snarled, stepping closer. "SAT scores purchased for $20,000, Harper said clearly, ensuring the phones around them caught every word. "Bitcoin transactions hidden through the Jefferson Excellence Foundation. Administrative passwords used to alter official academic records. Should I continue?" The color drained from Tyler's face. But it was too late to back down now. Too many people were watching. Too much had been said. "You're insane," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Marcus," Tyler called without taking his eyes off Harper. Jake, I think our new friend needs a lesson in how things work around here. Marcus moved to Harper's left, Jake to her right. The crowd pressed closer, sensing blood in the water. Harper's smartwatch vibrated once. Her mother's signal that the FBI was monitoring the situation and backup was en route. But backup was still minutes away, and Tyler's plan was unfolding now. "You know what I think," Tyler said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper that somehow carried across the silent cafeteria. "I think Miss FBI Princess needs to be reminded that she's not special, that she's just another stuck-up girl who doesn't know her place." Harper saw Jake pull something from his pocket, a box cutter, the kind used in art classes and shipping departments. Her blood turned to ice as she realized what Tyler intended. "Some girls need to be taught humility," Tyler continued. "Need to understand that their secrets aren't as hidden as they think." Marcus grabbed Harper's arms from behind, pinning them to her sides. The crowd gasped, but no one moved to help. This was the moment Tyler had orchestrated so carefully, public humiliation so complete that Harper would be destroyed socially, emotionally, and psychologically. "Hold her still," Tyler ordered Jake, who advanced with the box cutter gleaming in the fluorescent lights. Harper felt the cold metal touch the fabric of her skirt, heard the soft whisper of cotton being sliced. The crowd's gasps turned to nervous giggles and sharp intakes of breath. Phones clicked and whirred as 200 students recorded what they thought would be her complete destruction. The fabric fell away in pieces, fluttering to the cafeteria floor like broken promises. Tyler stepped back with a triumphant smile, waiting for Harper's breakdown, for her tears, for the moment when she would run from the cafeteria in shame and never be able to show her face at Jefferson High again. Instead, Harper stood perfectly still, her expression calm, wearing the black military compression shorts that covered her completely from waist to mid-thigh. "My dad taught me to always be prepared," she said quietly, her voice carrying clearly in the sudden silence. Tyler's expression shifted from triumph to confusion to rage in the space of a heartbeat. This wasn't how the script was supposed to go. Harper was supposed to be destroyed, not standing there like a warrior ready for battle. "You think you're clever," Tyler snarled, raising his fist. "Let's see how clever you are now." He swung fast and hard, putting all his weight behind a punch intended to put Harper on the ground. But Harper Mitchell was the daughter of a Navy SEAL who had trained her to fight since she could walk, and the daughter of an FBI agent who had taught her that the only way to stop a bully was to make them face consequences. Harper ducked low, Tyler's fist whistling through empty air above her head, in one fluid motion. She rose from her crouch, grabbed Marcus's wrist as he tried to tighten his grip, twisted it with precise leverage that sent him staggering backward, with blood streaming from his suddenly broken nose. Jake lunged forward with the box cutter, but Harper was already moving. A textbook judo throw sent him flying across 2 lunch tables, landing in a heap of scattered trays and spilled food. Tyler, off balance from his mischievous, was completely unprepared for what came next. Harper's spinning heel kick caught him square in the solar plexus, with the kind of precision that came from years of training and a lifetime of preparing for exactly this moment. Tyler crumpled to the floor, gasping for air that wouldn't come, staring up at the girl he had tried to destroy, while 200 students watched in stunned silence. Harper stood over him, surrounded by the torn pieces of her skirt, breathing steadily while her would-be attackers groaned on the cafeteria floor around her. She looked down at Tyler with something that might have been pity. "You should have left me alone," she said quietly. Then she calmly picked up her chair, sat back down at her table, and opened her notebook like nothing had happened. The silence stretched for an eternity before someone in the crowd started clapping. Then another person joined in. Within seconds, the entire cafeteria erupted in applause that sounded like thunder rolling across the mountains. But Harper wasn't listening to the applause. She was listening to the sound of multiple vehicles screeching to a halt in the school parking lot, to the heavy footsteps of federal agents moving through the hallways, to the radio chatter that meant the cavalry had finally arrived. The cafeteria doors burst open, and Agent Margaret Mitchell entered with a full FBI tactical team behind her. She surveyed the scene, her daughter sitting calmly at a lunch table surrounded by torn fabric and groaning bullies, and allowed herself a small smile of pride. "Tyler Brennan, Marcus Chen, Jake Morrison," she announced, her voice carrying the full authority of federal law enforcement. "You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, money laundering, and violation of federal education statutes." As the handcuffs clicked into place, Tyler looked up at Harper with something approaching disbelief. "How?" he whispered. Harper touched her father's dog tag through her shirt and thought about promises kept and battles won. "You forgot something important, Tyler," she said. "Some people actually fight back." The arrests came in waves over the following days. Principal Morrison Brennan, Guidance Counselor Peterson, IT Administrator Jake Morrison, and 37 other individuals connected to what the FBI dubbed Operation Clean Slate, the largest academic fraud scheme in federal history. The Jefferson Excellence Foundation's financial records revealed a network spanning 6 school districts, involving senators' children, judges' families, and college admissions officers who had been taking bribes for years. The total amount of fraudulent transactions exceeded $2 million. Tyler received 2 years in juvenile detention. His father was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. The DA, who had tried to intimidate Harper's family, found herself facing ethics charges that ended her career. But the real victory came 6 months later, when Harper stood at a podium in the United States Capitol, addressing a joint session of Congress about the Safe Campus Act, legislation that would create federal protections for students who reported academic fraud and establish the Safe Sisters program in schools nationwide. "My father taught me that honor isn't about being comfortable," Harper told the assembled lawmakers, her voice strong and clear. "It's about doing what's right when it costs you something. Today, we're making it cost a little less for the next student who has to choose between safety and justice." The Safe Sisters program would eventually reach over 3 million students across all 50 states. The Congressional Safe Campus Act became law with unanimous bipartisan support, and Harper Mitchell, the girl who had walked into Jefferson High carrying her father's dog tag and a promise to always fight back, had kept that promise in ways that would protect countless others. Sometimes, Harper reflected as she stood on the steps of the Capitol, the best way to honor the dead is to protect the living. Sometimes, the most powerful victory is the one that ensures no one else has to fight the same battle alone. Tyler had tried to shred her dignity in front of 200 witnesses. Instead, he had helped her weave a safety net that would catch millions of students for generations to come. The dog tag still rested against her heart, cold and constant as a promise kept and a future secured. Her father would have been proud. The dog tag still rested against her heart, cold and constant as a promise kept and a future secured. Her father would have been proud. As Harper walked down the Capitol steps that day, she passed a group of teenage girls heading up toward the building, their eyes bright with purpose and determination. One of them wore a small pin on her jacket that read, "Safe Sisters." Harper smiled, knowing that somewhere, in a cafeteria just like Jefferson High's, another girl would stand a little taller today,